Right.
And not all happened at the same time, but I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, watching my kids play outside when I was sick, thinking, man, I'm starting this year very poorly. And it's that phrase kind of became my theme for the year. And it made me realize that there's so many things in life that we do that we start poorly, whether it's potty training, whether it's learning to tie our shoes, whether it's brushing our teeth, starting a new job. We start everything poorly. And over time we get better. But for some reason, when it comes to these big dreams, these big goals that we feel like we have to be perfect. We feel like we have to have a perfect plan. We feel like we can't miss a day. We feel like we have to be flawless when we're amateurs out of the gate. And so the start poorly concept came to say, with those goals, with those dreams, why don't we treat it like everything else and begin to take baby steps in the direction that we've always wanted to travel?
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stephenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where we believe that living your best audacious life is not just a dream, but an achievable goal. Whether you're seeking personal growth, chasing your passions, or striving to overcome obstacles, we're here to support you on your journey. It's always a pleasure to be here, sharing insights and empowering conversations with you, our valued listeners. I really want to thank you for spending a bit of your day with us. Your willingness to learn and grow inspires us all. Now, today we're going to explore the idea that starting poorly is a natural part of the journey, of any journey towards achieving our goals. Think of it like planting a seed. Initially it may seem small and fragile, but with each small manageable step like watering, sunlight, and care, the seed begins to grow into something beautiful. Similarly, embracing these small steps can build the confidence and the momentum that we need to flourish and grow. However, there's this thing called fear, and the fear of failure often acts like a heavy stone weighing us down and preventing us from taking that first step. Recognizing this fear can be so empowering. It allows us to push past and through those barriers that hold us back. And as we navigate our past, we must remember the importance of grace and humility on our personal growth journeys. Each stumble and misstep offers valuable lessons that can outweigh our successes. I'm so excited to introduce our guest today. His name is Justin Grifford. Justin is a pastor and a thought leader in the realm of goal setting and personal development. He spent over 15 years in ministry, helping others identify and pursue their own personal life goals with purpose and intention. His mission is to empower individuals to embrace the concept of starting poorly, teaching them that it's perfectly okay to take imperfect steps towards their dreams. This mission resonates deeply, with our theme today, making him a perfect guest for our episode. It is an insightful conversation. Justin has lots of great stuff to share. So let's turn to our chat, and here's what Justin has to say about starting poorly. Enjoy. Hey, Justin, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to be here, my friend. Thank you.
Audley, it's great to be here, man. Looking forward to getting into what we have today.
Sure, absolutely, no question. It's always I always consider it a privilege to be able to engage in conversations that potentially others can listen to and make a difference in their life. And so I
Yeah.
feel blessed to be a part of that process. And so thank you again for being here, because you can't help. I would be able to you help me fulfill my mission, if you will. And so I appreciate that. You spent a lot of time on work in the area of helping people with their goals and setting goals for themselves. And when we think about audacious living, and we encourage individuals to live that best audacious life, and part of that really is understanding that the journey that they're on, and it's gonna look different because we're all on our own individualized path. But we certainly have to be, courageous enough and bold enough to take those first steps and launch in that direction. And when we talk about goals, and you specifically talk about starting poorly, which I love, and I'll get you to expand on that further. But starting poorly to achieve those goals and direction that you want to live your life. And so maybe as a starting point, I'll get you introduce yourself to the audience, talk about the work that you do, and what's got you to the point that we're in now.
Sure. So my name is Justin Grifford, and I currently serve as a pastor in Columbus, Mississippi, and been doing full-time ministry for about 15 years or so. But the goal journey, you might say, started whenever I became a father. And it's when you first become a father, you realize how much free time you used to have, right? Because those kids it just soak up every ounce of your time, and they need you for this, they need you for that. And so I realized as a husband, as a father, as a pastor, I was not becoming the kind of man that I personally believed God wanted me to be. That wasn't going to happen by accident. I wasn't going to trip and stumble into that, but it was going to take intentionality. It was going to take developing habits. It was going to take developing goals within myself. And so that for me began what's now been about a 12-year journey into identifying certain things that I wanted to accomplish, whether that's with my physical fitness, whether that's with books I wanted to read, miles I wanted to run, things I felt like I needed to develop as a pastor. And so since then, I've kind of created my own systems and read different books about that, which finally led me to a place where I wrote the book that we're about to talk about.
Got you. So let's talk about the philosophy around starting poorly. That's the title of your book. But there's a philosophy around that. I wonder if you can sort of expand on that. What's the message you're getting people to pick up or wanting to leave with?
Yeah, so the origin of it all was for someone who's into goals, and they're in that world and live in that world. The end of one year and the beginning of the next is a big deal. It's kind of the Super Bowl of goal setting in my personal opinion, because you get to see, okay, this is how far I've come. This is if I lived up to my goals, did I do everything I said I would do, and if not, how can I change that for January 1? Like, how can this year be different? How can 2025 be different? How can 2026 be different? And so going into 2024, I had all those goals mapped out, Audley. I wanted to run the miles. I wanted to do the workouts. I wanted to read these books. I wanted to develop better writing skills, just a lot of different things. And so January 1 comes, and I get the COVID flu combination, right? Not just one, but both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I pull my hamstring. Later in the year, I develop an infection that I kind of battled for a number of months.
Right.
And not all happened at the same time, but I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, watching my kids play outside when I was sick, thinking, man, I'm starting this year very poorly. And it's that phrase kind of became my theme for the year. And it made me realize that there's so many things in life that we do that we start poorly, whether it's potty training, whether it's learning to tie our shoes, whether it's brushing our teeth, starting a new job. We start everything poorly. And over time, we get better. But for some reason, when it comes to these big dreams, these big goals that we have, we feel like we have to be perfect. We feel like we have to have a perfect plan. We feel like we can't miss a day. We feel like we have to be flawless when we're amateurs out of the gate. And so the start poorly concept came to say, with those goals, with those dreams, why don't we treat it like everything else and begin to take baby steps in the direction that we've always wanted to travel?
Mm-hmm. So with everything in life starting today, because that's essentially what you're messaging, and everything starting today. How did the I guess the philosophy of starting imperfect influence so that our ability to chase dreams? Because we've got these big dreams, we've got these things that we're going after, and we want to go after rather. But there's a part of it we have to embrace the fact that today's not going to be the greatest because we're just getting started.
Correct. Yeah. And that's just it. There's a book by Jeff and Amy Downs called Streaking, and it's not what you think it is. But it's about creating streaks with habits and with goals that you have. And what they encourage people to do is to create incredibly, ridiculously small goals. And so if you're wanting to get the goal of walking, right? Just if you can set a small goal of, I'm just going to walk for 5 minutes today. I'm going to walk for 10 minutes today. And so creating the biggest piece of advice that I give to people if they're wanting to start today, if this has never been in their DNA, if they have just 0 ounce of self-discipline within themselves, the place that I tell them to start is find 15 minutes. Find 15 minutes today, find it tomorrow, find it sometime this week. And whatever it is you want to do, begin writing that down. Like if you want to play the guitar, you never touched a guitar, just in your mind, you've dreamed about playing the guitar. Spend 15 minutes writing down, okay, what songs do I want to learn? What color guitar would I buy if I bought one? Will I take lessons? Will I pull off YouTube? Like how will I do that? Spend about 15 minutes to gain a foothold into that thing you've always wanted to do.
I'm curious your thoughts on because there are a lot of people, as much as you talk about, hey, just start, the idea of thinking that something that you've never done before, you're gonna be perfect at it out the gate. It's when you really think about it, it's kind of crazy, right? Like you've never ever done this, you think you'd be perfect and got it nailed. So there's a part where we've got to accept and embrace that. But I'm curious as to why do you think there are so many people that think it has to be perfect out the gate?
I think it's just one of those fears. Like we have in the book, I talk about what I call the fear court. Do you remember the food courts in malls, the indoor malls? You go to the food court, and it's the only place in the world where you can get a Chick-fil-A sandwich right next to an egg roll place and a slice of Sbarro's pizza, like within 10 feet of each other, right? And so I call it the fear court. Like there's the food court and then there's the fear court.
Okay.
And when it comes to fear, like there's different types of fears. There's different types of fear vendors. Sometimes fear will serve you. You can't do it. Sometimes fear will tell you you have to have the perfect plan. Sometimes fear will say, okay, well, if you start this, you have to be an expert immediately. Like fear tries to serve us so many different versions of itself. And so when it comes to the perfect plan, I think that's something in a lot of us. There's this delusion that we have of the perfect plan. And again, that's sort of the failure to embrace start poorly. You have to embrace this idea that, okay, even my plan is not going to be perfect, because even if it was a perfect plan, things will happen along the way that's going to make you change that plan. You're going to need to plan in pencil rather than pen, because you're going to have a day where you're sick. You're going to have a week where you have other responsibilities and you have to take a trip, right? And so just the delusion of the perfect plan often stands in the way of starting poorly, right? And that's the subtitle, is sidestepping perfection to reach your goals, right? Mm-hmm. Finding ways around that perceptionist mindset is so important.
I wonder if you had an example, maybe from your life or someone else's, that of, or a story you heard of someone who had a poor start, or imperfect start, if you will, and found success down the road.
Sure, there's actually I've got a couple stories in the book of people I personally know, but some of the more high profile ones, I tell the story of J.K. Rowling, of how she was living in government housing, well below the poverty line, and she finds a place where she's hitting rock bottom, and all that she has left is this dream and a typewriter. And so she begins to just doing what she knows to do, doing something that she's already do, basically starting that from rubbish. And we know that she goes on to create the Harry Potter series, turned into multiple films, an enormous franchise. And so you see people like that kind of rise up and just begin somewhere. And a lot of times we're afraid to start in that place because we have other things going on. For her poor start came because it was her only option. There are high profile actors that began acting later in their life, in their 40s and 50s, and are household names today. But for me personally, it's interesting. I talk about these different phases in the book that as you're pursuing that goal, you walk through those phases. For me, I experienced all 5 of those phases in the goal of writing the book. Okay, so my goal for the year is just one of the things I wanted to do was create a better habit of writing. As someone who preaches sermons and teaches weekly, I wanted my written communication to just be more developed and sharpen that up. And so in me practicing that writing, I began writing about whatever I wanted to write about, and it led to this starting poorly concept. And so there's 5 phases. There is the dream phase, there is the plan phase, the start phase, the grind phase, and then the finish phase. And so I found myself in the dream phase with what would it be like to write? What would it be like to write a book? Right? I mean, lots of people have that. Like, what if I did that? And so from there's the planning phase of okay, if I do this, how am I going to do it? What's the structure of it? How will I discipline myself? The start phase is okay, you're launching into this, you're going to do it. The grind phase of, man, this is incredibly hard. Like, will I ever see this through? And then there's the finish phase of, it's done. Let me hit send. Let me ship my work. Let me publish it and send it to the world. And so those are the phases that I outline in the book. And so it's not just something that I pulled from nowhere, but it's something that I actually felt along the way.
Gotcha. Earlier, you'd referenced grace, and also you mentioned that you're a pastor. I'm wondering how sort of your faith and grace is sort of fed, into, I guess, influencing your message of idea of embracing imperfection.
Yeah. So before I became a minister to a church, I did youth ministry and served mainly with kids, 13 to 18-year-olds. So many of them looking to develop their faith. They'll go to conferences, they'll go to retreats, and the Lord will really stir something in them, and they want to grow in their relationship with Christ. And so the way that I would often encourage them is because they're getting hit with all these emotions that they've never encountered before, and they come back and say, I want to read my Bible 2 hours a day. I want to pray for an hour a day. And I said, that's great that you want to do that, but if you're not doing it like 5 minutes a day now, you're probably not going to do it for 2 hours a day, right? So here's what I encourage you to do. I want you to start small. I want you to say, hey, for these 10 minutes, I'm going to set a timer. For these 10 minutes, I'm going to read. For these 10 minutes, I'm going to pray. And let that compound and you grow from there, right? And so even the message of starting poorly is a form of grace. It's a form of grace that is extended to us, that Christians are called to be like Jesus, and Jesus is perfect and flawless, and we will never be this side of eternity. And so starting poorly is a message of grace that we can slowly but surely take steps to develop a relationship with the Lord, change some things about us that could be sinful, that could be toxic, that could be harming our relationship, and giving yourself forgiveness along the way as you pursue those things.
Hey, grace is a big one. I mean, we oftentimes, beat ourselves up, or we use the should word. I should be doing this. I should be here. I should. And I think the more we live in that space, and the more we beat ourselves up, and the more guilt we pile on each other, it just makes it that much more difficult to rise out of it, right? And so it's treating ourselves with kindness, love, and compassion, really.
It really is. It really is. Yeah, because when you know when you start poorly, when you give yourself grace, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be a pro. It's not that you should know better, but it's, hey, I'm still growing. I'm still learning. And it's operating, I think, from a place of humility. And when you can stay humble in what you're doing, you can always learn something.
I think of the very first time I got on a bike, and I as much as I remember fondly because I fell down. But it's there, and I often have sort of talked about this philosophy around, falling or down or failing, if you will. And that's really what people oftentimes are afraid of. There's one of two options. If you approach something that you've never ever done before, you're trying it the first time, you'll either be successful and you do it, yay, hurrah, hurrah, good for you, fantastic, you are a prodigy, go ahead. Or you fail and you're not successful. Let's spend some time here, because I think in here you'll figure out now what not to do, how to do it better, how to avoid it, and you got something you can share with others at the same time as well. And so by being able to embrace all those things, and maybe even with the expectation you might not do well, I think it does. What it does is really set you up down the road for some bigger breakthroughs, really.
Yeah, definitely. You know, before we got on, we were talking about NBA teams and basketball. There's so many things that are overlooked when teams are winning,
Yes.
when things are successful, but everything is pulled apart by especially talking heads in the media in a loss. And so we learn far more in our losses than we do in when things go well because we think, oh, we have the natural talent or everything went our way. But yeah, it's so true. If we're able to fall forward or fail forward, we can always be moving in that direction of getting better.
And sports is the perfect analogy of that. I mean, it's the image of the game being on the line and you're the free throw line, an example, to ice the game with no time on the clock, right? It's one of two options: the ball's going to go in or it's not. And and even the example of the free throw, I oftentimes say that is the most practiced shot ever. Like everyone at some point as a kid was like, game's on the line, here's the free throws, let me shoot it and see, win the game kind of a thing. And even with all the years of practicing, growing up as a pro at the pro level, the training, all that kind of stuff, there's still no guarantee that free throw is going to be made when it counts the most. We like to
Yeah.
think we've done everything possible, but there's still no guarantee of that.
Yeah, you're right. Basketball is a great analogy with this too, because you see players enter the league who have athleticism that's off the charts.
Yep.
But about halfway through their career, if they don't develop that mid-range three-point shot, then we see their careers decline, right? Like we saw when LeBron started shooting more threes. We see when some of these prolific scorers began to change their game. And those who couldn't, those who didn't, they found that they couldn't jump as high. They couldn't be nearly as athletic as they were maybe in their early 20s. And I was listening to a great story about Kobe, that whenever he was in high school, he would always be working on something. He probably could have dominated some of the leagues that he was in playing right-handed, but he made himself play left-handed
Right.
so that he could develop that skill. He chose to start doing that poorly so that he could be great rather than always just sticking to the same thing.
I remember that story. I remember he even like took it even off the court, like he'd be eating with his left hand and doing things with his left hand intentionally to
Yeah,
strengthen that as well too. And he was talking about the cereal, not getting the cereal in his mouth with his left hand. That's funny.
man. Yep.
That's
Yeah.
funny to think
The
about.
mom was a different cat for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah, 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 yeah. Let's talk about those who are struggling, with the fear of failure or perfectionism. I think that's really kind of the two work hand in hand.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just wondering maybe some practical steps that they can take to begin their goals without feeling like this big overwhelming on top of them.
Sure. Yeah. So once they push through the dream phase, and in the book I talk about the different phases, and there's pros and cons to each one. With the dream phase is fun because it's like when you were a kid. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a baseball player. I want to be a basketball player. But the con to the dream phase sometimes is that we actually have to we have to move on it from some people for at some point, because some people live in the dream phase their entire life and they never do anything about it. And that's kind of the people you're talking about, is they want to get to this plan phase and they don't know how to do it. They feel overwhelmed. One of the big things that I lay out is just make your plan very simple. Decide, okay, how much time am I going to spend on it? How often will I work on it, and make it as small as possible.
Yeah.
I say, for me with my writing, I told myself, okay, I'm going to identify an hour every day. Every day of the week, I'm going to sit down for an hour. Well, I learned about a couple weeks in that didn't work, and so I pivoted. When the goal didn't work, I pivoted. I didn't panic. I decided, okay, I'm gonna try to do 5 days a week, and go from there. And so for people listening to your audience, maybe an hour is too much. Maybe 15 minutes is right on the money.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe 5 minutes is right on the money. But creating ridiculously small goals that that you can repeat, I believe, is how you get your foot in the door. And another thing that I recommend too is create a menu, is what I call it. When you go to a restaurant has a menu. It's got so many different things on there. 9 times out of 10, we pick the same thing on the restaurant because we know what we like, we know what to expect. But
Sure.
sometimes you're just not feeling that. Sometimes you want something different. And so you have to decide for yourself what counts in you working towards your goal. Because for me, you would think that the only thing that counted was I have to be writing, I have to be in front of my laptop, I have to be writing. But I created a menu of things that counted. So what that looked like was going to YouTube and listening to people talk about the process of writing a book. Going to YouTube, listening to audiobooks on how they marketed their book. For me, it meant reading different blogs and different posts that people make about goal setting and just reading different books. So for me, I had a different menu for the way that I felt. And so I felt like if you can create a menu, you can choose different things from that is different ways of performing your goals. Because I've heard people talk about wanting to get up and run and let's say it's pouring down rain. Well, can't do it today. Let's say that it's 20 degrees outside. Well, can't do it today. But if you can create different things and different ways to pursue that goal, then you can set yourself up for some variation.
Love it. Just thinking it through, when we talk about, I mean, the sole goals of the podcast, we spend so much time talking about, living audaciously, right? And really, oftentimes that requires, courage and to a certain degree, some vulnerability as well. When we talk about being able to embrace imperfection or not getting it good off the jump, right? Like that those things, are it's can be daunting, right? Depending on where you're at. I'm just, wondering how, embracing, imperfection empowers people to live more boldly.
It does, for sure. And one of the things that Seth Godin talks about in his book, The Practice, he talks about shipping your work, is that you reach a point in your goal in whatever it is you're doing. Let's say that you're learning to play an instrument or something, or you're learning to paint, right? He talks about reaching a point where you can finally send your work out. Let's show your work to the world. For me, it's actually publishing the book. There will be a hang up for you to say, well, I need to wait. I need to make sure that it's a little bit better. There's one more thing that I can do. And he has this great quote in his book, The Practice. He says, your work might not be good enough for everyone, but it's already good enough for someone. And so there is your audience, there's your people out there that is ready for what you have to offer, because your C+ work that you get finished can do far more for the world than the A+ work that's stuck in your mind and that will never get out, that the world will never see. And so we're all very flawed people, all improving, taking the steps that we need to. And so even in finishing our work, we have to know that requires a start poorly mindset as well.
Yeah. And I really think if you go into it, and I guess sometimes I try to make things as simple as possible, when I go through this here, Justin. And I think for me, if I walk into a situation and I've said, okay, I'm gonna put my best foot forward. I'm gonna be as authentic and as real to me as I possibly can to maintain my integrity to who I am and my work. I don't think you can do any much more than that. Like, I don't think there's more beyond that you can do. How the intended, how the message is received, the end user, that's something out of your control. And that's where some of that faith and trust is, that you just got to say, you know what, I've done my part. I've done what I'm supposed to do. I put it out in the world. Let's see what happens. Because there's no guarantees. We don't know.
Right. Yeah. And for me, and for people out there, when you're trying to promote a book, of course you talk about it. But for me, I know that whether I sell 100 copies or whether I sell 1,000,000, I know that I can put my head on my pillow at night and say, at least I gave it a shot. I gave this a try. There's lots of people that leave a lot of things on the table and in their dreams that they look back and they say, I wish I would have just gone for that. I wish I would have had the courage to, as Greg McEwen calls, the courage to be rubbish. I wish I could just have the courage to do something and try it and see how it went. But there's people that do, and there's people, sure, maybe people mock them, maybe people make fun of them for whatever reason, but they can be at peace knowing that they gave it a shot and they gave it their all.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's a message or that you hope listeners walk away from with your book, what would that be?
I would say the message would be There's sort of this old belief that there's the have and the have-nots, that you either have talent or you don't. What I would tell your listeners is that you have the ability to do the things that you've wanted to do. Now, we talked about basketball. If you're 5'9" and 250 pounds and 35, 40 years old, probably not going to play in the league. But and you have to be real with yourself.
Yeah.
But we always have believed that there are those who have it and don't have it, the talent to do and to not. You can do it. If you can find the time, if you can discipline yourself, if you can develop the habits within yourself, the habits will grow you into the person that you've always wanted to be.
Yeah, it's funny. Like even on that basketball example you just gave, I think it's interesting because uh, maybe playing isn't for you. Maybe that's not what your option is. But what other things, what other ways can you be close to the game or close to if it's the NBA, your goal, what other things can you do that allows you to be so close to it and still be a part of? Because I will tell you, anytime when I refer to anytime I stay close to my passions, good things come,
Yeah,
right? And
that's a
so
good word. Yeah.
how do you stay close to your passions as possible, right?
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. And I think there are I talk about this in the book, and I call it creating a loop.
Okay.
Is that if we can create this loop, advertisers know how to do that. Whenever I was growing up, I was a huge like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle kid, like love the turtles. And they made the cartoons, the movies. I wanted to eat pizza all the time. They had the
Sure.
toys. And marketers know how to create that loop, right? Where you watch the show, you want to eat pizza. You watch the movie, you want to buy the figurines. And they just keep you in that. And so I think if a person can stay close to that passion and they can find ways to stir that within themselves, it's always going to re-engage them. It's always going to bring them back. And so for me, it's listening to podcasts that talk about these things. It's having conversations like this that are about people doing, being passionate about things, doing the things
Sure.
they've always wanted to do. Like if you can find ways to just reinforce and create that loop within yourself, you're right. People are gonna think more positively. People are gonna take more risk. People are gonna have more courage. It's just something that community in those passions creates.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate that. This is the Audacious Living Podcast. So before I go, I certainly want to ask a question to you with respect to, what does audacious living, mean to you? And then, how does, your faith fit into that vision overall?
Yeah, I would say for me, it would probably be the same answer. For me, audacious living is knowing who you are, and for me as a Christian, knowing that you're made in the image of God, that you have in you the what the theologians would call the imago Dei, that you reflect the image of God, and that we are designed to be like Him. We are designed to live for Him, and He is a creative God, and so I think that we're called to be creative as well, and we're called to live in the fullness of life, and I believe that is doing the things that we're passionate about, and setting our eyes to do those things to glorify Him.
Got you. I mean, Justin, this has really been great, and I think again, and thank you for the definition because I think it's really important to understand. We understand what we're talking about. It allows, and we can visualize it and see it, touch it, feel that kind of. It's easier to go towards it, right? And if that's
Right.
a pathway that you're working towards, and that commitment is that I want to live more audaciously. I think defining it's important. So I appreciate that you've done that. Also, again, appreciate you being here for listeners if they wanted to connect with you. Get a copy of Start Poorly. Where can we send them?
You can go to my website, justingrifford.com. It's also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, anywhere where books are sold.
Very, very cool. And we'll make sure that the contact details are in the show notes below. Justin, this has been great. Thank you. Really, really, really appreciate you being here and sharing that man that you did. I think starting poorly and embracing imperfection is a wonderful philosophy for us to live our lives. And again, the grace thing is, I think, is a huge part of that. For me personally, if I were to think what my takeaway is, certainly that grace component is a
Yeah.
huge part of that. So thank you. And congratulations on the book. And thanks again for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Audley, thank you for having me. It's been a treat.
Cool. Back we are here on the podcast. During our chat, Justin shared his insights on how starting poorly can actually lead to greater successes and fulfillment. I particularly loved how he emphasized that grace and humility are essential as we navigate our journeys. He encourages everyone to start with a manageable goal and recognize that even the most successful among us have faced setbacks. And it's so true. If you're interested in connecting with Justin directly, be sure to check out the show notes for his contact details. He has also generously offered a special resource for our listeners, a free guide on setting achievable goals, which you can find linked in the show notes below as well. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us on this edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've appreciated the episode, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, or share with someone who you might think would benefit from our conversations. Of course, this is the type of support that helps us to grow and continue to reach more people on their journeys to living audaciously. Now, as we wrap up, remember that just like that seed that starts small, every step you take, no matter how imperfect, brings you closer to your goals. So embrace the journey, learn from your failures, and always be kind to yourself as you grow. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stephenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.